If you find chemistry extremely difficult, you're definitely not alone. I've also struggled with chemistry at different points. But despite that, I managed to score 91 over 100 in my JAM UTME chemistry, and I got straight A's in all my university chemistry courses. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing practical tips that will help you get better in chemistry. These tips might not necessarily make you a chemistry genius, but if you can apply those tips, it's definitely going to make you get better at chemistry. So if you are in secondary school or in university, or maybe you're preparing for a particular chemistry exam, I don't just want you to watch this video. I want you to actually take note of the tips and try to apply these tips. If you're new here, I'm currently a 50th medical student of the University of Ibadan, and it's going to make my day if you can subscribe to the channel. Please also like this video and share with someone you think might also find it helpful. Here are the 6 tips that will help you get better at chemistry. Number 1, mindset shift. Many students believe that chemistry is too hard, which is true for many students, and they believe that because it is too hard, they cannot learn it. And that is where the problem lies. Believing it is too hard for you to learn can actually prevent you from trying hard enough to learn it. This one believes that this subject is too hard and no matter how much I try, I'm not going to get it. The person probably will not even try hard enough to get it. And that leads to a vicious cycle, because you do not believe you have the ability to learn something, you're not going to try hard enough to learn it. And not trying hard enough to learn it means you're not going to learn it. And that's going to reinforce the belief that you cannot actually learn it. So you have to break away from this vicious cycle. I want you to actually believe that chemistry is something you can learn, and it's actually something you can learn. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of time. And here's the interesting thing about it. The more you learn chemistry, the easier it is for you to learn more. This also applies to almost every field of learning. If you are just learning, or you are just exposed to a new knowledge or a new skill, it can be difficult at first, but the more skill or knowledge you gain in that field, the easier it is for you to gain more new skill. So I want you to know that you're going to work very hard at the beginning, and it's going to be hard, but with your consistency and your belief that you can actually learn chemistry, then you are going to learn it. Tip number 2 is to master the fundamentals. A lot of topics in chemistry are built on other topics, and good knowledge of the older topics will help you easily understand the new topic. For example, stoichiometry, that is the calculation part of chemistry. To be able to solve most of the question in stoichiometry, you must know how to balance chemical equation very well. Many times that's the first step in solving these problems. So if you don't know how to balance chemical equation, then you might not have a lot of issues with stoichiometry. Another thing is, to be able to balance chemical equation, you should be able to write chemical formula for all the compounds. So not knowing how to write chemical formula will also cause you to not be able to balance chemical equations. Can you see how they are all linked together? Another example is having a good knowledge of the periodic table is going to help you know the properties of elements when you're studying metal, non-metal, and metalloids, for example. And not knowing periodic table will make doing that more difficult. And when you know the periodic table very well, it's going to help you learn the other things well. I can actually keep going on and on of how different topics are related to other topics, and learning one topic will make learning another topic easier. But here is my point. Everything in chemistry is kind of connected, and the difficulty you're experiencing understanding a topic might actually be because of the lack of knowledge of another topic you should have learned before. So here is the advice, or here is the key takeaway from this point. If you are in secondary school and you're just starting, or you're in university and just starting, please pay attention to the first few topics you're doing, to the fundamentals. Take them seriously. Actually, you should take all your topics seriously. Let's say you are not just starting out in secondary school or in university, or you're preparing for a chemistry exam. There are also things you can do. Sometimes you might just need to go back to revise or to review the basic information you do not have, and you don't have to sit through your textbook to do that. If you have enough time, yes, I advise to go through your textbook and try to learn the first few chapters of chemistry textbook. But if you don't have the time to do that, like, technology has made learning much easier now. You can just go to YouTube. There are a lot of YouTube videos that explain concepts. You can easily use video tutorials to understand the concepts you never understood before. Having people help you, people that have more knowledge. Like, if I'm going to teach a student chemistry and I'm teaching the student a particular topic and the student is not getting it, I will know that okay, you're not getting this because of the knowledge of this topic you lack. It's going to take more time, it's going to be more stressful for both of us, but I'll say, okay, let's go and learn this one first. That is what a friend that knows more than you can do. Also, a private tutor might not be a bad idea. And physical tutorials, all those are possible ways you can make learning the basic or the fundamental part of chemistry easy. And if you're in school, also, study group is very, very important, especially in university. Study groups, you have people that are better than you that will teach you, and you should also be eager, also always try to teach people, because the process of teaching them helps you realize gaps in your knowledge and you fill them. And the more you know, like I've said before, the easier it is for you to know more. Tip number 3: don't just memorize, understand. There are a lot of things in chemistry, and trying to memorize everything can be very counterproductive. And one thing I also noticed in chemistry, especially the calculative aspect of chemistry, one time I believed it was so difficult, but when I realized that most of the time I find it difficult is because I do not really understand the basic principle behind the calculation. That's why I find it difficult. When I realize this, I always try to understand the principle behind it before I attempt the calculations. And ever since then, I find it significantly easier to solve chemistry questions. Tip number 4 is to use diagrams and visuals. Your chemistry textbook is filled with a lot of diagrams, charts, chemical equations and formulas. All these things are actually put there to aid your learning. For example, a chemical equation can summarize what a lot of text, just taking a glance at the chemical equation, for example, can tell you everything you've read in like 2 paragraphs. Or there's some diagrams that will illustrate something. Just looking at the diagram can summarize the whole chapter to you. And you should actually be taking advantage of this. Like when you're reading, look at the diagram in the text, look at the diagram in the chapter. Tip number 5 is to use additional learning resources. Besides your class notes, probably the notes you take from your lecture or the classroom and your textbook, there are other resources that can be of great help to you as a chemistry student. One which I personally find helpful is tutorial videos. I use YouTube videos to learn a lot of topics in chemistry, and there's some tutorial videos that are just better actually than the way my lecturer taught it in class, and this is always very helpful. Like understanding that, I'll now relate it to what my lecturer said. That, okay, this is what the lecturer is trying to say. It makes more sense now. There are other resources you can find useful. I have mentioned tutorials before. Study group is another tool you can use, and more recently, we are seeing AI tools that make learning even much easier. You can utilize all of these things. It does not have to always be your class notes and your textbook. Try to use other resources to make learning easier for you. And finally, tip number 6 is to practice, practice, practice. This applies to every subject you're doing, and chemistry particularly. After reading the topic and you practice questions on that topic, there are some things this helps you to do. First, it helps you assess your knowledge. It helps you see how much of what I read do I actually know. And when you realize there is a part of the reading you do not really know, you can easily go back to check and fill in this gap. Another thing is that practicing question helps you understand better, and it also helps you retain what you've learned, because practicing forces your brain to process what you've actually studied, and processing it creates neural pathways and causes the information to stick longer. And also, if you're in university, sometimes your lecturers will always repeat past questions. So if you've practiced those questions before and you see them in your exam, it is easier to solve them. And even if they don't repeat the questions might be formatted in similar ways. Like if you can tell why this answer is correct for a particular question, if you see a similar question with different wordings in your exam, it will also be easy for you to solve those questions and answer them correctly. If you're in university, practice chemistry questions that are from the previous years, like your actual university question. That should be the first priority. If you are preparing for a particular exam, look for past question on that exam first and practice the chemistry question on that exam before you do other practice questions. So that's it from me in this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I'm going to really appreciate, like I've said before, if you can like this video, share with someone you think might find it helpful, and also subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.